Although there are more than 1,000 versions of Custer's last stand, just one man survived to reveal its darkest secrets on the battlefield. Charles Windolph, the final white survivor of the Battle of Little Bighorn, had a story so lurid that it would redo everything we thought we knew about that day. A young German immigrant, barely 25 years of age, finds himself in the midst of one of America's most controversial battles in history. Charles Windolph was not just any run-of-the-mill soldier in the 7th Cavalry. He was about to become part of a story that would haunt America for centuries. What makes Windolph's tale so wholly mind-blowing is that he was not just another historian piecing together second-hand accounts. This man saw the chaos, listened to the earth thunder in 1,000 thunders of horsehoofs, and was an eyewitness to the last hour of some of America's most well-known military figures. When Windolph finally published his memoirs decades later, he dropped bombshells that challenged everything we thought we knew about that June day in 1876. But here's the twist. His journey to that deadly battlefield is nearly as implausible as the battle itself. Born in Bergen, Germany, Windolph was the son of a master cabinet maker, his own life as far from the plains of Montana as possible. He was but 18 when he made the decision that would forever change his path, leaving the comfort of home behind and stepping aboard a ship for America with nothing more than dreams and will. You could be wondering, okay, but many immigrants came to America. Yes, but this is where Windolph's tale takes an utterly wild turn. Rather than taking the usual immigrant route of settling into a trade or agriculture, this fearless young German did something else entirely unconventional. He joined the United States Cavalry, and not even any unit. He was a member of the storied 7th Cavalry, led by none other than George Armstrong Custer himself. Talk about leaping out of the frying pan and into the fire. The 7th Cavalry was no ordinary military unit. It was America's top-of-the-line frontier fighting force, and Windolph was in the thick of it. Picture it, a young soldier who knew precious little English, learning to execute the exhausting cavalry drills that would shatter or forge a soldier's reputation. Windolph made it through the training, but he not only made it through. His superiors caught on to his exceptional horsemanship and accuracy with a gun soon enough. Remember, those same skills later saved not just his life, but the lives of his comrades. And now, let us talk about the man himself, Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer. When Windolph joined the 7th Cavalry, Custer was already a legend in his own lifetime. A Civil War war hero turned Indian fighter, Custer's reputation for brash, dashing tactics preceded him everywhere. But Windolph's account gives us a tantalizing glimpse into the real Custer beneath the legend. He described a commander who could be brilliantly tactical, but also frustratingly reckless, a paradox that would play a central role in the outcome at Little Bighorn. As spring turned to summer in 1876, tensions were building on the frontier. Gold found in the Black Hills had sent a rush of prospectors into the sacred Native American lands, breaking treaties and pushing the action toward war. Windolph then explained that most of the soldiers, including himself, had no idea about the extent of what was about to befall them. They believed they were going into just another campaign, a few small skirmishes, nothing more than they could handle. Boy, were they in for an awakening. The campaign that would end at Little Bighorn started with what seemed to be routine orders. But Windolph did notice something different this time. The pace was quicker, the preparation more thorough. The 7th Cavalry was pursuing one of the largest gatherings of Native American tribes in history, but their intelligence was fatally wrong. Instead of the small bands they had expected to find, they were riding into a vast army of warriors commanded by Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse. June 25, 1876, started hot and dusty. Windolph wrote of a strange tension in the air that day, something which even the horses felt. And as they approached the Little Bighorn Valley, what came next would become legend. But Windolph's account throws the standard version into serious question. That notoriously mythologized vision of a great suicidal final stand? Not even close, says Windolph. That never happened. This is where it gets really interesting. Windolph was with Captain Frederick Bentine's command, not Custer's immediate regiment. This gave him a unique perspective that few others had. While Custer led his troops toward what would be referred to as Last Stand Hill, Windolph and the other soldiers were in a similar desperate situation on Reno Hill. The next 48 hours would test every last ounce of courage and endurance they had. Now, this is where Windolf's tale becomes completely crazy. When the main fight was underway, he and the other soldiers were stuck on top of a hill with no water. It was hot, men were dying of dehydration, and their ammo was dwindling. That's when Windolf volunteered for what would have otherwise been a suicide mission. Caught under heavy fire by hundreds of Native American soldiers, Windolf kept going back to the Little Bighorn River to obtain water for his comrades. Ponder that for a moment. During one of America's most historic battles, this German immigrant was actually dashing through a firefight, bearing valuable water to help his fellow soldiers survive. Each trip may have been the last, yet he kept going back, over and over again. When Windolf finally recounted his complete version of the battle's aftermath, he let loose some serious bombshells that overturned the entire historical record. Bombshell number 1. The general supposition about Custer's initial attack. That wasn't the plan at all, Windolf reported. He stated that Custer had originally planned a more measured assault, but something altered his thinking when they reached the valley. What specifically induced Custer's fateful change of heart remains one of history's biggest mysteries. But here's something that'll blow your mind flat out. Windolf's survival during those 48 hours of intense crisis wasn't so much a matter of courage. It was a matter of something that modern military tacticians call adaptive leadership. While chaos was erupting around him, this young immigrant was making split-second choices that would be studied in military academies later. Think about this for a moment. A German cabinet maker's son was literally rewriting the survival manual on the battlefield. And I was just talking about survival. Let's talk about the nutty conditions in which these fellows fought in this battle. Not only the arrows and the marksmanship, of course. Imagine this. The June temperature hit over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Those dark blue wool uniforms of the troops were essentially transportable saunas. Their horses were exhausted, their water canteens were empty, and the water was nearest in enemy lines. It was literally hell on earth, and Windolf was in the thick of things. And then comes the more intriguing aspect of Windolf's tale. That histrionic business in theatrical movies, where you have soldiers handing out great big secrets and saying goodbye letters to loved ones? Well, Windolf poured something just absolutely devastating. As fate would have it, some of the young servicemen, well knowing their potential demises, sat down and wrote farewell letters home. Others actually buried their personal items, hoping they'd be found and returned to their families. It's the kind of detail that makes the human aspect of this ancient war come starkly to life. But wait, it gets better. Recall those water runs Windolf was awarded a Medal of Honor for? Well, there's a small detail most textbooks gloss over. During one such outing, Windolf actually stumbled upon an injured Native American fighter. Instead of battling, they sat and eyed each other for a moment, and in what Windolf subsequently would refer to as a moment of shared humanity, the two men just nodded and parted ways. It's those kind of miraculous private moments which create his memory so vivid and meaningful. Now let's talk about something that will open your mouth: the scene following the battle. What Windolf and the other survivors of his found when they arrived at Custer's position challenged the Hollywood portrayal of a glorious last stand. Instead of seeing the tidy line of dead soldiers painted and portrayed in movies, they saw a scene of utter chaos. Bodies were scattered across a wide area, suggesting a running fight rather than a static defense. This revelation completely changed our understanding of Custer's final moments. After the battle, Windolf's life experienced some just amazing turns. He might have leveraged his status as a survivor of the Battle of the Little Bighorn, but instead kept a low profile. On the job in the Homestake mine in Lead, South Dakota, he became well respected as a man to be relied upon and for getting the job done, not as a war hero. In fact, few of his fellow workers had any notion that they were working alongside a Medal of Honor recipient until years later. The archaeological evidence for Windolf's testimony is just staggering. Contemporary digs have uncovered artifacts exactly where he said they'd be, from expended cartridges to personal items. But the clincher here is that some of these discoveries were not carried out until the 21st century, using techniques that Windolf could never have imagined. And yet his accounts, delivered decades ahead of time, match the physical record exactly. If that's not proof of his phenomenal memory and attention to detail, I don't know what is. Let's end on something special. In his latter years, Windolf was asked why he did not come forward sooner with the whole story. His answer? Some stories need time to be told right. And wasn't he so right? His story, revealed to us only after all the years of thought, gives us something special, a perspective which combines the visceral immediacy of war and the wisdom of decades of reflection. Charles Windolf's survival against what would seem insurmountable odds provided us not only with yet another war story, it provided us with critical insight into a pivotal moment in American history. His legacy is a reminder that sometimes the greatest stories are those that have yet to be shared. To this day, his Medal of Honor sits in a museum, witness to the valor of a young immigrant who was an American hero. Leave a comment below if you were as shocked as I was at these Battle of Little Bighorn revelations. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more jaw-dropping history.